Hi, I'm Paul from Velo, and I've had my G Line for a week and I've taken it on some great rides. Come join me to find out my initial thoughts about the G Line and what I think is its biggest issue. I love it. I've done some familiar rides, I've done a little bit of light gravel, I've done a bit of off-roading, and I think it's a really good, capable bike. I love the bigger wheel size. For me, compared to my other Brompton, it seems to really glide. I love the Alpine 8, I've always loved them, and it works really well. The gear ratio is perfect, I think, for me. The 54 I was thinking was a bit big. If you're in a really hilly terrain or you're doing hilly rides or you live somewhere hilly, probably go down to a 52. Bristol's quite hilly, but I can do all the hills I usually do quite happily. So I'll definitely keep that, and rather than changing that out. Ooh, what else do I love about it? Well, let me say this. This is a mass-produced bike. If I read it right and the number's correct, this is the 4,700th one produced. But within one ride, it's my bike. It's got all the personality that I want from when I buy a bike, and I'm in love with it as much as I was in love with my first Brompton, and it didn't take very long. So yes, it is mass produced, but it's my bike and I love it. So the paint, really nice, really durable. It's painted under the seat tube as well, which is a vulnerable area on my bike that has rusted a little bit, surface rust, which is nothing really to worry about, but that's a nice thought. I put some frame protection on, which is stuck quite well, considering the paint finish is kind of like a matte desert type finish. That's worked really well. I love the tyres. The wheels are nice. I've had to just lightly retrue the rear one. That's probably because I went a bit aggressive with it yesterday. The brakes, lovely. They've bedded in really nicely. Handlebar position, yeah, everything is tip top. They've gone for a micro shift shifter, which you would think with because the Alpine 8 is a Shimano hub, they would have a Shimano shifter, but actually this one is really nice. It works really well. It really clicks. Probably the Shimano one wouldn't click as much, but I really like that. That is a really nice shifter. One thing I absolutely love, and I want to buy another one, but there are £70, is the saddle. It's got a nice grip under here that you can hold when you're picking up the Brompton. I wouldn't need that on my other Brompton because I pick it up by the frame, but this Brompton definitely I'll pick up by the saddle. So that is a really nice feature. Also, the seat is really comfy. Well, I see a bit more long term, but it's potentially one of the comfiest saddles I've owned. I believe it's their super light version, so I really like it, and I would like it on my other bike, but it's 70 quid and I've just bought this, so I just need to chill a little bit. But yeah, really nice feature. Well done, Brompton. I'll go through some more points about the Brompton, and then I will tell you what I believe is the biggest issue with the G Line. Pedals. I like the pedals. I usually wear clips, but I'm going to keep these flat because I'll probably do quite a bit of touring with this bike, and it'll be easier if I don't have clip-ins. The left one is a removable pedal. There is a little bit of movement in that pedal, which I really noticed on my first ride, and then on my second ride I didn't even notice it was there. That's just because of the mechanism, how it slots in and out. So I'm not sure of the way to overcome that, unless you could have fixed pedals on it, but I will keep that as it is. It's only a minor thing. I've put a bottle cage on. That's really nice feature. On the other Brompton we use the Re-Strap one, and on Sarah's Brompton, so that works quite well, but that's really nice and that works super good. There's two bottle cage bosses here, so I plan to put a cage on there for when I'm touring with a bag, so it's going to kind of be re-strapped up for when I go touring or bike packing. So the bike itself rides really nice. Compared to my other Brompton, I feel like this can just go loads further. I did a trip to Dartmoor recently, and this definitely would have been a lot more of the tool for the job. The fold's fine, doesn't fold as good as the other Brompton, but it rides just so nice. I reckon it's good for light gravel, maybe some heavy gravel. If you take it fully off-road over terrain that's really bumpy, the small wheels, you will notice the small wheels because the stones are going to hit, or the rocks or roots are going to hit further up the tyre than they would on a bigger bike. So for that, I reckon you could do it, but I think you would have impact on the bike and the wheels, and you're probably taking it maybe a little bit beyond where it should go. long term if you want to look after the bike, even though it would handle it really well. When you're just cycling it along, it feels like a big wheeled bike. It is, yeah, it's just remarkable what they've done, and it's great that Brompton have done this. I think it's a really nice option, but there is an issue, and we need to come on to that. So I believe the biggest issue with the G Line is its comparison to lots of other bikes. So I've been doing it in this video. I've been comparing it to my other Brompton. And if I compare it to my other Brompton, it's got loads of positives, rides better, can go lots of different places. On the negatives, doesn't fold as well, is heavier. But then I could say the reverse about my Brompton. If I was to compare my Brompton to this, you know, the opposite could be said. Hope that makes sense. So let's go back, say 20 years, around the time that I met Sarah. Brompton themselves were a good company, but they weren't as dominant as they are now in the folding bike market. Sarah's granddad was really into folding bikes, and I had a bike business at the time called the Cycle Hub, and I remember there were just a lot more different brands. You had your Bike Fridays, you had your Moultons were more visible, you had Dahon, you had Birdie, and I think maybe Turn were a little bit around. So the market was spread out. Therefore, you took each bike on its own individual merits. Whereas now, Brompton are the dominating force really in terms of folding bikes. The best, most foldable, most well-made folding bike, in my opinion. So bringing out the G Line, it looks like a Brompton. It looks like a gravel bike. Could be a mountain bike. You can ride it on the road. There's too many comparisons. And I think my hesitation to get one was because I was like, oh, it's heavy. And I'm just comparing it. And I think it's so hard not to do. And some of the comments that we've had from some of the initial videos about the G Line, people said, well, my mountain bike goes in the car, so why would I want the G Line? It's not a gravel bike. And that's what I think the biggest issue is. This is a G Line. It's not a gravel bike. If you want a gravel bike, you get a gravel bike. It's not my P6R. So I need to get away, and I blame myself as well. I need to get away from comparing it to my P6R, because my P6R is brilliant. I'd take that to London. Would I take the G Line to London? No. Will this be better when we go around France later in the year to watch the Tour de France? Definitely. So that's what we need to get away from. And I think if we stop comparing it with gravel bikes and everything else and just see it as an amazing product and an amazing folding bike, and going back, 20 years, you would have seen like a Moulton in its own product, if that makes sense, or a Bike Friday as its own merit. And I think that's what we need to start doing with the G Line, because it's a wonderful bike. Yes, if you want to go gravel racing and you want to ride, hundreds of K of gravel, you're not going to get a G Line for that purpose. If you want to giggle and you want to be able to fold the bike and you want to just enjoy what this bike brings you, it's perfect. There's so many uses for it. Whether you've got a Brompton, love Brompton, and want another Brompton, perfect. If you haven't got a Brompton, but you don't need the compactness of the other fold, then the G Line's perfect. If you've got a motorhome, there's so many uses for it. But I think for me, it's the comparing of this bike to other bikes. And if you do that, then sometimes this bike doesn't make sense. But trust me, it makes sense. It is really, really nice. So I hope all that makes sense, and I'd love to know your views on it. Please go wild in the comments and we'll try and respond to as many as possible. So to finish, what are my plans for the G Line other than getting it right before the better weather and just enjoying it all the time? I don't want to put a rack on it. I don't want to put mud guards on it. Again, it's to make sure it's different from my other bike, my other Brompton, that is. I want to do a bit of bike packing on it. I want to go cycle touring on it. We've been using Restrap front bag. We've got a Restrap saddle bag, and I mentioned the cage, which I think will be really good. When we go to France as well, to see the Tour de France, which is in July, I want to take a backpack, so we've got that when we're on the ground and not using our bike. So I think that setup will work really well. We've got trips planned to go over to Wales for Sarah's birthday. I'm just going to use it. In Bristol, I've been using my Brompton lows over the winter And this is just going to open up a lot more trails for me. There's loads of bridleways I can cycle on, and I think this is going to work really well. Don't want them to be super muddy because I think the tyres wouldn't cope with it, but at the moment it's all nice and kind of compacted. So yeah, I'm probably going to be on this bike most of the year. Try not to forget about my other bike because I still love it and it still has a real purpose in my life. But one reason why I wanted to get this bike, in a weird way, the way my mind works, is to prolong the life of my other bike, because my other bike only has one more hinge replacement, and then when those hinges are done, the frame's done. And I would really like that bike to last me 30 plus years. So by having another one, I can save the wear on that one, if that makes sense. Bit silly, but that's just the way my mind works. So I'm really looking forward to doing some long-term reviews, silly G-Line videos, and generally loving this bike. So thanks for watching, and please let us know your comments. And if you like what we do, please subscribe.